Berkeley and in other urban areas, we've seen this large growth in tech. And this has brought great benefits to the community, including jobs and economic prospects. But we often forget how it's only been regionally here that we benefit from it. In my article, I really discussed of how tech in our minds is in some ways flawed, how the tech companies that we love and have become part of our lives have not always had this effect for everyone. One of the first flaws with tech companies is how tech is distributed geographically across the US. So regions like San Jose hold the majority of the industry, while places like Detroit and the Rust Belt have been left behind in high-tech growth. And so in my article, I really look at how college towns, in trying to bring back tech companies to these regions which have been overlooked, would really benefit the economic prospects in each of these cities. Furthermore, there's another problem with big tech, and that's because that tech companies no longer employ as many people as traditional manufacturing firms used to. For instance, GE employs 300,000 people, while Apple, a new tech firm, only employs 100,000. And so this is left whole because we have a net drop in the amount of people employed in large industries. There is a proposed solution, and that would really come down to two parts. First of all, local governments would have to use subsidies and tax breaks to try and incentivize large corporations to come to their local city in order to bring economic benefits. The other half would mean the federal government would need to spend more money in research institutions like the University of California, Berkeley, except in different regions like in Michigan or in other parts of the Rust Belt, in order to try and foster new hotbeds of startup culture there. There is one final concern, which is that the companies in the Big Four, or Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon, are actually breaking monopolization practices and have too much market power. This is being proposed by Barry Lin, and shortly after he was fired for the remarks that he made criticizing Google because the organization he worked for was funded by one of Google's chairmen. And what he proposes that the FCC should crack down on these large companies and enforce new regulations which will be able to strengthen markets by not giving them unfair control. This change in FCC practices is actually very radical because it would mean a departure from the current FCC chain of command, which as long as a company doesn't hurt the consumer, it is doing nothing wrong. And it would be a very dramatic shift. Of course, on top of this, tech companies are in a very disruptible market. For instance, Microsoft is a company which in the early 2000s had a market share of 90%. And today it's only 25%, because no matter who you are in Silicon Valley, you can't stay on top forever.